Gina Chick. Welcome to Threefoodmemories here in my home.
I am so grateful to be here and I love your home. And you can't see the art here, but the art is amazing.
But thank you. But a huge congratulations on your being a cover girl.
I'm a cover girl.
Cover girl.
Oh my God.
Front of this the Good Weekend in style, and it reads, "Cool chick." Tell me about the cover.
Oh, the cover's great. What does it say? From shunned outsider to charismatic celebrity. I laughed so tea came out my nose when I read that bit. How Gina Chick's affinity with nature came to chime with the times by David Blaise. Now, this cover was hilarious because, after Alone, generally, whenever there's media, they want to see the possum coat. They want to take photos of the possum coat because the possum coat is mythic. And I said, look, everyone's done the possum coat. Why don't I get into a designer frock and go down on the beach and we can build a fire? And right after we'd done the whole shoot, I just the sun was setting and I said, I didn't even say anything. I just went and started dancing on the beach. And Tim Bauer, the photographer, just started snapping like crazy. And this is one of those photos. And I say to all the photographers, please, and the magazine people, don't Photoshop my face, don't airbrush my face, don't take out my wrinkles. I want to be natural. I want it to be like how I look in the photos. And bless them, they've done exactly that.
Well, here we are, Saturday the 14th of September 2024. So I'm not sure what to talk about first here, the chicken or the egg, you winning Alone or the new book, We Are the Stars. Let's actually talk about the show first. So you were always going to win this series, weren't you? And the reason why I say that, because, let's just tell us about the show.
Okay. For those people who haven't seen Alone Australia, it's based on a franchise, on a show that has been running in the States and in the Northern Hemisphere for, when I went out, it had been running for I think 8 or 9 years. And now it must be up to about 11 years. And the premise is this: 10 Australians, in our case, of dubious sanity, get dropped into some absolute winter hellhole to survive as long as possible, completely solo, no film crews, no producers, no nothing, just the person with 10 survival items and about 70 kilos of camera gear and their wits. And so we'd just get dropped in winter. So as people often say, oh, was it autumn? No, it was actually winter. And then we have to survive and film our journey. So really, it's not a survival show, it's actually a docu-series. So each of the 10 people makes a documentary. There's only 4 ways you can leave. The first one is that you can press the red button on a satellite device because you're actually about to die. And the red button is imminent danger, please come and get me as fast as possible. And you just hope the cavalry arrives in the next little while before you bleed to death. The second one is there's a satellite phone and you can ring up and say, this is the most rubbish idea I've ever had in my life. I need a coffee, I need a lasagna, I need a hot shower, I need a durry, get me out of here. The third way that you can leave is that one of the semi-regular medical checks, when they basically are assessing us to see if we're in danger of organ failure from starvation, they can medically tap you and just say, nah, your blood pressure's too low, you're out. And then the fourth way that you can leave is that somebody you love jumps out from behind a bush and says, surprise, you're the last person standing. And that's what happened to me.
And that's what happened to you. So at the end of it, there is prize money.
There is prize money.
$250,000.
$250K, yeah, Aussie.
But you weren't in it for the money, which is, as soon as I saw that in the episode, I was like, this bitch is going to win.
Yeah, baby.
Why wasn't it about the money for you?
That's a really good question. So don't get me wrong, the idea of winning $250K was incredibly, motivating. But for me, that was never going to be enough. I'm not motivated enough by the idea of money to put myself into this kind of situation. For me, there has to be a purpose beyond self. It has to be a way for me to do anything. I have to be in service in some way to my village or to the people around me or to a purpose greater than self. I went out into Alone to tell a story, and I knew that I was making a stand for a story that we very, very rarely, if ever, get to see in mainstream media. And that is a way of being so in harmony with nature, so at home in the wild, inside and outside, that every step that we take is in balance with our environment. And what we see on TV is man versus wild. It's day 753. Is Gina going to get eaten by a drop bear? You know, that's what we're used to seeing. And so I went in there to show that there is a deeper and an older and a wiser way of connecting with nature that is alive in our DNA, that is part of all of our wisdom, and that we never get to see. And so that story doesn't get told unless it's through an Indigenous lens, which is amazing. But I wanted to be able to tell that story through a non-Indigenous lens. And alone was like, that was my kind of my flag in the mud. I was going to say in the sand, and it wasn't sand, it was mud. That was my line in the sand and my flag in the mud, to live that in a way that people actually would get it. Not as a theory or a concept or an ideology, but something that they could see and feel and viscerally experience in their own bodies. And that's what we saw, because on the first episode, when I was kicked off my boots and I was dancing barefoot in the mud and talking to the trees, when that episode showed online, there were all these people going, oh my God, the crazy hippie lady in the fur coat. How long do you give her? Oh yeah, 24 hours. But then over the weeks, the conversation online started to be, hang on, she's doing something really different. What is she doing?
You didn't obviously see this conversation while you were in there. It was afterwards.
No, watching, because I had no idea. I watched it with everybody else.
Right.
I had no idea. But all I did was tell the truth. And that's the other thing that I did when I went out there. I made a vow of veracity. I vowed that I was going to tell the truth, and I was going to film no matter what. Whatever I was going through, whatever I was thinking or feeling, I wasn't going to edit. I wasn't going to filter. It was just, this is me. And because I think that with these kind of things, as soon as we start trying to censor ourselves and edit ourselves, we're trying to portray something. Whereas I just wanted to tell the truth of my own experience, raw and unfiltered and messy and real, and make it okay for us to be raw and messy and unfiltered and real, especially as a postmenopausal woman. Because I never get to see me on a screen. I get to see women my age who are either so plastic surgerized, to fit into Hollywood, that I don't have any resonance or kinship. Or there's the postmenopausal women are invisible, or we're crone, or I just wanted to be like, fuck no. We are amazing and wise and wild and sexy and creative and beautiful and magical and capable as fuck. Am I allowed to swear?
You absolutely are.
Fantastic. And so I took all of that in with me to Alone, and I also went in with I went in to do 90 days. That's what I said going in. I was like, I am not coming out before 90 days. And so the only way I'm going to come out is if they drag me out. And before 90 days, and then when I was getting close to that, I thought, oh yeah, I can probably do an extra 10 after we get to 90. And when they came to get me, I still had 3 weeks worth of food.
How did you count the days? Was it
yeah,
track of them? Was it really?
I would sometimes not be able to keep track. I'd be like, I think it's day 45, maybe it's day 47, is it day 50? And then, but then there might be a medical check or something, and that would reset my days. I'm like, oh, right, yes, I'm at day 50.
So, the new book, We Are the Stars, would you like to read us something from it?
Sure, I can read something from We Are the Stars. Oh. Okay, I would have, if you'd told me, I would have prepared. What can I read you from here? All right. Okay. Opened up a page and this is where we're at. All right. So this is about my dad. Dad's in trouble again. This time it's a doozy. He's always a little bit in trouble from Mum, but it's that in trouble that grown-ups have with each other when they're still smiling underneath the words and don't really mean it. He told me once that whenever Mum asks him to weed the garden, he pulls out all the herbs, pretending he doesn't know what weeds are. And when she asks him to get herbs for the salad, he brings back weeds. She gets so nearly mad, she never lets him do either. Dad is the smartest person in the world until he isn't. He's usually in trouble for one of three things. The first is that when he does house jobs for Mum, he makes contraptions that are efficient instead of beautiful. Mum is an artist. Everything she sees is a living painting and absolutely must be beautiful or she gets a migraine. She arranges the house so that scarlet vase leads your eye towards this cerise painting, which sets you on a visual adventure through light and space. It hurts her eyes if something is bog ugly. Literally everything Dad creates is bog ugly, including his outfits. He combines stripy chintz pants with a cheap nylon paisley shirt he bought when Mum wasn't looking, or completely shaves off his moustache and most of his chin, leaving his bushy beard intact from the jaw down, without telling her first. She makes him sleep on the daybed until it all grows back and he looks like himself again. His solutions to problems are always innovative and unorthodox, if somewhat lethal, like the powered hedge trimming contraption he cobbled into a full body harness and then climbed the rickety ladder with it whizzing and whirring, leaning out in a precarious trapeze act over the naked chainsaw blade. It would have resulted in decapitation or dismemberment if he had fallen, or both. He got in a lot of trouble for that one, but the hedge got trimmed, mostly, and he was undeterred. The second thing he gets in trouble for is that he doesn't feel pain like normal people, which means he always trips over his gigantic feet or runs into sharp edges or cuts himself with a saw or an axe or somehow brains himself with a lump of wood. He doesn't notice the resulting gaping wound and drips blood all over the house and the sheets, which makes Mum totally lose her mind. I'm reading one day when he staggers into the house, mopping his head with one of the nicest bath towels, covered in streams of blood. He'd been riding his bicycle home from playing squash, head down, going like the clappers, and looked up just in time to see a parked caravan. He crashed into it, hurtling through the back window and landing inside in a tangle of arms and legs. He shook himself off, cleaned up most of the shattered glass, and wrote a note for the owners. Then he carefully let himself out the side door, picked up his mangled bike and walked home the rest of the way, pulling bits of glass out of his head and face. He was lucky he didn't blind himself, but Dad is always lucky. The bike and caravan, not so much. The third thing is that he does exciting, amazing, dangerous stuff with us all the time, which we adore, but Mum hates. She hides upstairs while we're jumping off the high top deck into his arms, or he teaches us how to chop wood barefoot with an axe he's sharpened to samurai razor, or we're climbing the biggest tree in the backyard. Mum doesn't want to infect us with her fear, but I feel it anyway. Dad is the grand prince of adventure, and we trust him implicitly, which is not always the smartest move, but we aren't wise enough yet to know that. Danny and I learn the hard way that sometimes Mum's caution is called for. And then there's a story that you're going to have to read the book to find out.
So, on day 35, we're going to move into your food memories now. On day 35, on Alone,
Yes.
You said that every waking thought was about food. What was food for you at that point?
Oh my goodness. Well, in terms of survival, that was it. If I didn't have food, I would lose too much body fat and they would tap me out. So without food, it wouldn't be me tapping myself out, it would be the medics tapping me out. Because if we go into starvation, then our blood pressure drops and we don't have enough blood pressure to give us oxygen to our organs, and we can be at risk of like permanent physical damage. So if I was going to last my 90 days, I needed food, and specifically I needed fat, because fat is high calories. You've got your fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K that you can only absorb if you have fat. So to have enough micronutrients, you need fat. and it's just so calorifically dense. It would mean that I wasn't, stripping my own body of fat. So by day 35, like the fish that I'd been catching, they were like little. I mean, I caught a lot of them, but it's not like the northern hemisphere salmon and trout, which were these giant, like honking, stonking things. Like these were little, delicious rainbow trouts and brown trout, but nothing that you would call substantial. So I was pretty much dreaming about something that had like calories and meat, really.
Your 3 food memories are my favourite types. People gathering around food, creating a pure sense of belonging. So this first memory we're going to bring to life for you.
Yeah.
Have we got that coming? Have we got it coming in?
What?
This is the egg sandwich that appears in your story. And it's actually a truffled egg sandwich that we've made for you.
God.
With some prosciutto and fresh lettuce.
And
with that sandwich comes something really surprising that is extremely Australian from the 80s. Can you smell it?
I can.
It's a bit of a fancy egg sandwich.
That's a much fancier egg sandwich than we would have had at home. But it's.
But what we've also have for you is something even more exciting. Come and bring that in. Do you know what this is?
Oh my God! Is that tang?
Can you bring the little container
Oh
so
my
Gina
God.
can take home with her?
Oh my God! You found tang? No way!
Doesn't it remind you?
Oh my God! You found tang? Yes.
Can we get in some photos?
Oh my God! Well, we didn't have these.
No,
it was a
had
metal.
jar.
It was. Wasn't it a metal?
No, it was a glass jar with an orange plastic handle, and my mum was famous for recycling the tang jar.
Oh my God! Let me just.
You're taking that home with you.
Wait. Oh my God! It's tang! No way!
So we found it.
Where the hell did you find tang?
Well, a bit of a Google search, Uncle Google.
Oh my God!
So it's a present for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd love some numbers and colours and flavouring and some tang, because that's what we used to take out on our picnics.
Tell us about this memory.
Oh.
You want to have a bite of the egg sandwich? I might actually have a bite of the
Okay, I'm going to have a bite. I haven't had any brekkies, so this is perfect. Oh my God, a bit of an egg sandwich. Oh yeah. Go the truffle. Why didn't we have truffle in the 70s? Oh, right, because we didn't have truffle in the 70s.
We didn't have truffle in the 70s, and we would have been up ourselves. We would have missed out on all these,
Absolutely,
all these experiences.
And also, even if there was truffle, there's no way it would have been in my little bogan coastal country town. No way. I mean, we had avocado. Every now and then we might have an olive, but we wouldn't have had truffle.
I used to think that avocado was like lesbian food, and I'll tell you why I thought that. I know, this is really strange. I've actually probably never vocalised it before.
That's hilarious.
But there was a couple of kids at school who had 2 mothers, like siblings who had 2 mothers, and every time we'd go over there, we'd have avocado in our sandwiches. I'd never seen it anywhere else. So I just kind of guessed that that's what it was. But it clearly wasn't.
Lesbian food.
Lesbian food.
Oh.
Please tell us about your food memory.
Okay. Let me just hang on. I just got to have a sip
tang.
of tang to get me in the mood of this memory. Oh my God, tang! Have they changed the formula?
Absolutely.
I think they've
they've
sanitized it a bit. So, about the time actually of that passage that I read about my dad, my 2 sisters, Danny and Kristen, we called her Christy. My 2 sisters and I were, we were very tight. We were very close as a family, and Mum and Dad were both teachers. So it meant that we had all our school holidays, all of our weekends, all of our meals together as a family. It wasn't like, someone's working late and someone's away. It was just everything was done as a family. And it meant when we had school holidays or when we had weekends, as a family, we would go on adventures because we lived in Jervis Bay. We lived in this amazing paradise, and Dougie, my dad, was the grand prince of adventure. Now, we ended up with every possible watercraft you could imagine, and one of them was this little boat. It wasn't a particular, I don't know how big it was. It had like a 35 horsepower motor. Meh. But we would all pile into it and go out onto Jervis Bay in some way and just have these amazing adventures. And when the call would go out that we were going out on some kind of a picnic, it would galvanise the whole family. And so my two sisters and I would suddenly run to the kitchen and we'd lay out all the brown bread, because we had brown bread. We didn't have white bread in my family, to my complete chagrin. All the cool kids at school had white bread, we had brown bread. So it would be brown bread, and then we had chooks as well. And so we'd hard boil a whole bunch of eggs. And I used to love making egg sandwiches. And so it'd be egg and lettuce, and put the mayonnaise in, and a little bit of curry powder sometimes, and butter, and smash it all up with some chives from Mum's garden. And we would have egg sandwiches, and then we would also have fruit and a big thermosy drink thing that we would have tang in, but like heaps of tang. It wasn't like the correct ratios. No, it was just like pour half the tang bottle in. And then we would all pile in, and heaps of fruit, and then we would all pile into the boat. We'd pile into the car, get into the boat, go across to some pristine beach on the other side of Jervis Bay, or go out and see the baby penguins on Bowen Island, and then we'd have a picnic. And after the picnic, we would lie on the beach, and we would read books, and we would belch, and we would snooze, and we'd get sunburned, and then we'd come back and unpack. And I couldn't tell you how many times that happened in my childhood, but it is such an amazing memory. And even with the truffle in there, that this egg sandwich is absolutely taking me back.
So what were some of the conversations that were going on, two sisters? Three daughters, actually.
Three daughters, three girls in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so Mum had 3 under 3. Crazy woman. Mum had 3 under 3. Mum had 3 under 3 when it was cloth nappies.
Wow. That's a lot of washing.
That's a lot of washing. There's one photo somewhere that I've never been able to find again, which Mum, I think she's got the baby on one hip and the 2-year-old on another hip, and me holding onto a skirt, and it's just this clothesline of nappies, and she's not smiling at the camera.
What number are you in the 3?
I'm number 1.
Number 1. And what was it like when each sister came along?
I don't really remember. I do. I mean, I can see photos. Mum took so many photos, and really candid photos. She had a dark room set up. And so, there's so many records of us as sisters. But because I was the oldest, or the eldest, I think I just got to do everything first. And I don't really remember, because I was only a year when Danny came along. Right. And then 2 years later, Chris came along. And so then all I really remember is just having the 3 of us. And we loved each other, and then we hated each other, and then we loved each other, and we just romped around. And conversations, I think, kids' conversations, what are they? They're a bit ridiculous, really. And it's just that really kind of tumultuous, beautiful, rolling, tumbling otterness of a family that spends a lot of time together. So when we'd be out, we'd play games. Wherever we were, we'd play games, the 3 of us. Or we'd do things like put sunscreen on each other's backs and draw shapes in there, or draw shapes and have to guess what they were. Or we'd make up games on various landforms, and they'd be pirate ships, or they'd be troll dens, or whatever.
What happened when boys came onto the scene?
Boys didn't really come onto the scene until we were mid-teens, really. And then, that's a really good one. So I grew up with my 3 girls in 3 years. Now, my dad's sister had 3 girls in 3 years, basically the same age as us. So there were 6 girl cousins, and we all had, each of us 3, had a girl cousin who was a year older than us. And so the 6 girl cousins, they all lived in, the 3 girl cousins, they all lived out on a farm out near Bathurst, out past Bathurst, in a little place that only had a population of 50, Trunky Creek. And every school holidays, they would come and stay with us for one school holidays, and we would go stay with them for another. So that we'd either be in the coast or at the farm. When these 6 girls, and also all of our second cousins and our other second cousins, I think there's something like 15 of us, could be wrong, within about 5 years, wow. All tall, all full on. And then so we all started getting boyfriends at the same time. And it just became, there was an initiation whenever there was a new boy on the scene, that whichever one of us brought the new boy, we knew that this was the thing. They had to pass the test.
And what was the test?
The test was stacks on. This gigantic football team of enormous girls who were all like, built in various versions of me, would just pile onto this poor unsuspecting dude who's just got out of whatever car it is, and it would be fully just stacks on, tickles, tackles, Vegemite in the face, whatever. And if they survived that first, the first onslaught of the cousins and the second cousins and all the sisters, and we all knew if they made it through that, then they were keepers.
So you came from a very female space,
Yeah,
didn't you? There
totally.
were women everywhere.
Women. And strong women. Strong, creative, intelligent, opinionated, vital women who were brought up to believe that anything was possible in their world.
So this brings me to a little bit of a segue. When I was researching you months and months ago, because I was hoping months ago you'd come on the show, I came across your birth grandmother,
Yes.
Charmian Clift, who, from the more research I do, is considered one of Australia's finest writers and essayists. She foreshadowed absolutely everything that we're going through right now. Way back in the 60s, issues around relationships with the land, our Indigenous history, feminism, capitalism, war cause, and all the rest of it. What is your experience of her? Because you were born after she died.
I was born after she died, and we had no idea that she even really existed. We didn't know. We knew Mum was adopted, but we didn't know who her mother was. And it wasn't until I was about 21 that Mum wrote away to find out who her birth mother actually was. And we found out that here she was. Here was this incredible woman.
Because you're two women that are worlds apart, yet you share, from what I'm seeing, you share the same curiosity, the same feistiness, the same beauty, and those cheekbones.
I know, right? Thanks, Charmian.
So what?
I know.
So when you discovered her, what do you just kind of go, holy crap, that man? This is...
Well, as I write in the book, there's the moment when Mum rings up and says, hey, I've found out the name of my birth mother, and it's a name I know. It's this woman, Charmian Clift. And my sister and I ran across to a bookshop in Mossman and found Charmian's books. And I remember this so clearly, turning over one of the books, and there was an author photo of Charmian on the back, and it was Mum.
I'm sorry,
Charmian.
Yeah.
But it was my mum. It was just and I can remember just looking at this photo, and it's basically my mother, and Danny and I just sort of looking at it and saying, this is her, this is undeniable. And I was still very much an odd child growing into into a woman, but I hadn't really found a sense of myself, a sense of place with other people. I had a sense of myself that I was too big, too much, too everything. But when I recognised this woman, my biological grandmother, this voice inside me relaxed and said, oh, that explains everything. And I did. There's a part of me that went, oh, okay, now I understand. But it was only later that I really discovered about her. But the interesting thing for me with Charmian was because my mum went through this massive journey of discovering her mother and everything that went on with that, and writing a book and which went bestseller in Australia and touring around, and because she of all of Charmian's children, Mum is the one, the illegitimate first child, is the one who looks like Charmian and has that creative fire as well. And so everybody who knew Charm, when they met Mum, would give her the books, they'd give her the photos, they'd give her the stories. So Mum suddenly became this receptacle for the ongoing history and the hidden history of Charmian. And then she wrote her book. So for me, Charmian was Mum's. And Charmian was Mum's story, not my story. And it wasn't until I got out from Alone and I went to the Greek islands, I went to Idra and found Charmian and George's house where Leonard Cohen had lived for whatever it was, a couple of years when he first came to Idra, until he found his own house. And there's a taverna where there is a very famous photo of Charmian and the tree.
Yeah.
And she's got her head on Leonard Cohen's shoulder, and they're leaning against this tree. And when I saw that tree after, a week of being on Idra looking for Charmian everywhere. But when I saw that tree, I felt her. And it's the first time I've really felt her. And I played the guitar and sang a song and cried and really connected with her then. And when I wrote this book, I really feel like Charmian was part of that. Like the genes are strong. They're strong in my mum and they're strong in me.
So giving up her child, she never spoke about giving up your mother at all. It was never it was never spoken about. And there was, from my research, there was a lot of trauma associated with that for her. Did any of that trauma seep into her novels, do you think? Did you see any of it? Did you sense any of it?
So here's a confession. I haven't read Charmian's work.
Wow.
Because I've always been a writer, I've always known that I wanted to write, and I never, once I found out who she was, I didn't want to be influenced by her voice. And this is really funny because I met David Walsh and Kirsha, who have Mona down in Tasmania. And David Walsh has gone sort of deeply into Charmian's story. And when he found out that I was Charmian's granddaughter, we were having a chat. And I told him that I hadn't read any of her work, and he ripped me a new one. He was like, "That's the most arrogant thing I've ever seen. It's like I've ever heard. It's literature. What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I don't want to be influenced by her voice." And he's like, basically balderdash, but he didn't say balderdash.
He used the big ones.
Yeah. But it was like, for me, it was a really conscious decision. But then after that, I had to think about it, and I thought, okay, well, I'm established enough in my own voice now. It is time to start reading Charmian. So I have gone into some of her essays, but I haven't read all of the books.
Do you think this bloodline motherhood story presents itself in your own experiences?
Absolutely. So Charmian gave up her first child for adoption. Mum's first child died in utero, pretty much full term, and so she had a stillbirth. I had a daughter who then died as well. So we've both, there's this very strong line of the lost children,
Which kind of takes me back to something that I was going to ask you down the track.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find it now.
Yeah.
There is that, I really feel that linear thread that connects, and even connects to your own breast cancer story as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What is it?
See, I think that it's very easy to attach meaning to the events in our lives. And depending on what lens we're looking through, we can come up with all sorts of meanings. We can say, oh, well, this was, there's a thread that, Charmian was like a victim of her time in a way, and that women all over the world have stories of losing children all the time. I think it's really easy to attach meaning to the events that happen in our lives.
Do you want to keep talking about this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And depending on the lens that we look through, we can come up with different meanings. But there is as many meanings as there are fingerprints, as there are moments. So when I feel into the threads of stories, like the genetic heritage of stories that comes through Charmian and through my mum to me, it's obvious that there is a motherhood thread and a thread about loss. But the thing that's really interesting for me is looking at the women being born into a time and how then that time supports them or doesn't in that loss. So Charmian was pregnant, illegitimate, first child as a teenager, pressured into giving up the child for adoption. That's it. I think she might have nursed mum for a couple of weeks, but then that's it. And then never spoke about it again. So that huge grief that was inside never got to be expressed. Came out in some ways in her work, but just nowhere was it safe for her to express that story. And then my mum, who's that adopted child, who has at her core this sense of being abandoned by her mother, which then informed her attitude to family. So as soon as mum started having babies, she was like completely obsessed with how we looked and tracking her own face in ours, and also family was everything for her. But her first daughter was stillborn, died in utero, and the nurse held her down so that she couldn't see the baby. So again, there was this, it wasn't the full, you can't talk about it, you can't do anything, but it was still this very kind of patriarchal, oh, well, we just have to manage this for the mother's sake. And so mum didn't really get that full support to be able to grieve her lost child. And then we get to me, and my daughter dies when she's 3 years old of cancer. But I have this incredible network. I have tools. I have a life of processing and developing skills of being able to hold my own emotions and look at my own grief. I have the people around me who can support me, but I'm also in a time where now these conversations can happen. And so in a way, it's almost like I get to hold that sort of like the generational healing for my mother and for my grandmother. And in the way that I get to be with my own daughter's loss, in a way I can sort of like heal that back up the generations, if you believe that kind of thing. I feel absolutely like there is like a river of that grief and loss that comes through.
Also a river of support.
Yes, absolutely.
And scaffolding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I am blessed enough to be born in a body that's strong and healthy, with parents who loved me and looked after me, and we didn't have much, but we had all of that. To be in a privileged country where as a woman I actually have options, I can make choices that result in my own freedom, and that I've had being able to make choices where I've learned how to hold my own emotions, so that I have been able to take this huge experience of the loss of a child and actually be bigger and brighter and better for it, rather than be broken, or rather than for it to be this deep and untold wound.
I want to go back to Charmian for a second. When I read the description of her teenage indiscretion, it kind of makes me a little bit, I get a little bit cranky about it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? And the reason why I'm cranky about it, because this is just this woman expressing natural feelings and being a woman. And I think I really want that retold.
Yeah.
I want that retold for her.
Yeah. I must admit, I don't like the teenage indiscretion. There's a bit of me that twangs when I hear that. It's like, oh, you know, I get that sort of, you know, tells what's going on, but it also, to me, it's really trivializing of her experience. And what do you mean it's an indiscretion? It's like it's a human.
She made the decision.
That's a human.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, that's such a word for the times. Oh, it was an indiscretion.
Yeah.
No, love, it was it's a life. It's a life. It's a child. It's a whole being. That's my mum. That's my mother, and her whole life is an indiscretion.
In fact, your mother was born just up the road here on Crown Street.
She was.
Yeah, and
she
so
was.
she's part of that story.
Yeah.
I smile because you are my cousin. I laugh because there's nothing you can do about it. This second food memory is quintessential. School holidays and cousins.
Yes, school holidays and cousins.
I'm spending school holidays with my cousins on the sheep farm out near Bathurst, which we touched on a little earlier. Go.
Okay, so like I said, we've had the 3 girl children and the other 3 girl children, and we all hang out together. Now, the farm out near Bathurst is a proper sheep farm, a working farm. I don't know how many tens of thousands of sheep, but there were a lot. And out past Bathurst, it's kind of just, it's dry, it's hot, and the sheep need feeding in winter because there's frost. And when we stayed on the farm, we became part of the working farm as well. So we got put to work. The girls, my cousins, they grew up in this way, and so we kind of grew up with them. So we would be riding the motorbikes or the horses, we'd be mustering the sheep, we'd be marking the sheep, we'd be drenching the sheep, we'd be playing around on the electric fence where the bull was, and, you know, putting our hands on the finger on the yes, exactly. Well, yeah, but on a farm,
that's how it works.
But also, you know, the thing about farming is you don't get a day off. You don't get school holidays. You don't get, you know, there's no union saying, okay, well, you get the weekends off. The sheep don't know that there's a weekend off. So Uncle Lyle would have to go out at dawn every morning, and he would come in and dark.
We'll save that job for them when they come. That'll keep them busy.
Well, it's not even that'll keep them busy. We need the help. We need the help. And so we became part of that. And for us, growing up on the beach, it was an amazing, it was an amazing thing to do. And also we loved our cousins dearly. And Auntie Nett would make everything from scratch. So she sewed all of the kids' outfits, or she knitted them. I think they even spun wool from the shearing of the lambs. Whenever there would be the big family events with not just the cousins, there'd be the second cousins and the grandparents' cousins, and there'd just be like 50 people of all generations would just descend on the farm. So food would have to happen, and it would happen in the farm kitchen in the aga. So it's the wood-fired stove to be able to cook everything. And Auntie Nett had a cookbook, which was like the local farm cookbook called the Trunky Creek Cookbook. And in it were the locals, farm people's recipes. And one of them was the Trunky Creek chocolate cake. And the Trunky Creek chocolate cake, I think it had like 4 ingredients or 5 ingredients, but it was legendary and we all loved it, and it would always get made for every anniversary or someone's birthday or whatever it was, Easter, we were out there would be the Trunky Creek chocolate cake. So one of us with our partner cousin would help often to make it and get to lick the bowl and make and to eat the icing. We'd be feeding the aga to get it to the right temperature.
How did you know to get the aga to the right? Was it?
Well, no, there's a dial,
right,
so we just put it in. And Auntie Nett would just tell us, put this much in. But it meant that the kitchen was hot. In summer, it's a fire in there, and it's hot out there as well. Yeah. There would be these big boxes of apples from a local farm, which we'd all eat, and then fart like crazy, and go in and get a tape recorder and record our own farts and laugh and do like just we'd play these games of murder in the dark across the entire farm at night. So we'd just be gone, in our partners, just like hiding in the pine trees, hiding in the hay bales, getting itchy. Like there was so much, and there would be so much food. Uncle Lyle would kill a beast. Sometimes we would be part of that as well. And there'd be fresh lamb chops. There'd be, the meat from the farm, which would get cooked on a big barbecue, or there'd be a spit. And so food was amazing, and it's part of my memories, part of my childhood.
Where would you all sleep?
There was a big back room, and there would be a whole bunch of mattresses down, and we would all bring sleeping bags, and it would just be an absolute sea of girls.
Were there any male cousins in this?
There's a couple of second cousins kind of going, okay, you're right. And there was one really young boy cousin, a baby boy cousin, who we all played with because he was a baby, and there were a whole bunch of, tween girls who got to have this little boy running around. We all got together, I think it was last Christmas, and we took a cousin photo of all of us, because we're now all in our 50s, with our boy cousin who's in his 40s in our laps, and he still fits in our lap.
What did the photos of that time look like?
Oh, they're amazing. They are amazing. My mum is a photographer, and the photos of that time you couldn't make up.
Are any of them in the book?
No, I couldn't write about all of this in the book. I just didn't have. I had to cut my words down so much. There's probably 4 books that I had to cut out of this book, so and the whole Trunky Creek story isn't in there.
So it'll appear maybe somewhere down the track.
Yeah. Well, I think when I write the Alone book, it'll be in there.
This contingent, this company of cousins. What role did you play in it?
Well, I was always a bit odd. And so whenever there was the...
Describe odd.
Oh, no. I was weird. That's very strange.
You say that.
I present really well now. I have healed my strangeness. I didn't speak human very well. I spoke wild animal really well. I spoke cloud extremely well. I spoke storm. I spoke wind. I spoke earth. I spoke animals. I didn't speak whatever the language of humans was. And because I think at my heart I actually am a humongous introvert, which no one ever believes, and I can find the parts of myself that can engage with people, but I absolutely need solitude to be able to recharge. Every human interaction costs me energy. So when there were always the big sort of family gatherings, I would be generally on the outer, so I could see it and hear it, dip in and out, but not necessarily in the middle. So when there'd be a big family card game, sometimes if it was at mum and dad's place, I'd be up on the top day bed. So I could hear it and I could chime in every now and then, but I wasn't actually playing. Sometimes I would. Same thing. I'd be with my partner cousin, whose name is Sharon, and the 6 of us girls, we would absolutely be, we would just be together. But once there was the big family thing, I would dip in and out, depending on my own.
You look forward to it, though.
Oh, absolutely. Loved it. And the great thing about my family is, I mean, they might have judged it, but I never felt it. Like, I never felt like anyone was going, oh my God, Gina, you're a weirdo. I mean, I think part of my weirdness was I wasn't really aware of how weird I was, or that other people might have an opinion about that, or that I could change my behaviour to, fit in with my family better. I was just odd. And they were pretty okay with it, I think.
And mum and dad did a good job of making you feel
absolutely
good about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't until you stepped out of the family and the environment.
Went to school,
that you realised.
Yeah, I knew, like at school, I knew that I wasn't like everyone else. Especially like in primary school, absolutely. I just didn't have any friends in primary school, and then in high school, I learned how to have friends. I ended up with a group. I ended up with a group where I say that yes, they became friends. It was it was a turbulent journey to get there. But then kids grow up as well, and we did. I learned enough about human language to be able to speak it. It's like learning a language. First of all, you have to learn the letters, and then you put them together to make words, and sometimes your accent's a bit thick. But then gradually you begin to speak the tongue.
And speaking the tongue of the wind, of the rain, of the sun, of the sky, what was that like?
Oh, that's like saying, what is it like to be you?
What is it like to be you?
Nah. So speaking the language of the sun and the sky and being me, well, it just means that I don't feel alone. I don't feel like I'm separate. The only time I've ever really felt alone is when I've been at school or when I've been a group of people and I haven't spoken the language. Then I feel weird and I feel strange and I feel lost and I have felt all of those things. But for me, being out in nature, I felt and feel like I am a bird or I am a tree or I am a cloud. So I don't feel like there is a separation between me and any of those things. And when the wind blows in the tree, it's like it's bringing stories from wherever the wind comes from. And I can, just like a tree catches those stories, I catch those stories. And when there's a change in air pressure, like I feel it in my body. And when birds are singing, the birds are telling you exactly what's going on as far as you can hear on the horizon. The birds are the eyes and the ears of the forest. So if there's a predator, the birds are saying there's a predator. Or if they're really comfy, they're saying, hey, everything's cool. Or there might be baby birds wheezing, which means they're a nest and I can go and find baby birds and hang out with them. Or if I can move through the bush without scaring the birds, then the birds aren't alarming and then the animals don't think there's any threat. So then they don't run away. So then I get to hang out with the animals as well, because the birds will basically say, oh my God, there's another bloody human come. Everyone just pisses off. But if you don't upset the birds don't tell the animals, and then the animals think, oh, it's safe. And so it's just this incredibly rich and diverse world that lives in my blood.
So you were always going to win alone because you took this intel to that isolation.
Yeah.
You were always going to
win. I never felt alone, not once. I had moments of loneliness for a village, but I never actually felt alone.
So I believe right in the deepest parts of my marrow, our children choose us to be their caretakers in this world.
Yes.
They are not ours. They don't belong to us. Why do you think your daughter Blaise chose you to be her mother?
That's a beautiful question. I believe the same thing. In fact, I often used to say this. I feel like, Blaise went, all right, I need you to be my mum. I need you to be my dad. Oh, crap, you're on other sides of the world. Right, you're going to have to get over here so you can meet. Like, I really, that feels like a visceral truth for me. And one of the things that I say, and I say this in the book as well, after I lost Blaise, I didn't feel it was unfair. I just didn't have that. And I feel like in some way, it's almost like we said, right, this time, it's going to look like this. You'll be the mum, I'll be the Bob. We'll teach each other things. Won't that be a great idea? And since losing her, I can honestly say having her was the greatest gift of my life, and losing her was the second greatest gift of my life. Because of her and because of having her and losing her, I am bigger, I am wilder, I am more compassionate, I am so much more kind, I am a much nicer person. I have more ability to hold people and listen. That nature connection is stronger. Like, I get to carry her gift into the world. And I think part of the story that I went out in alone to tell, the story of connection, the story of homecoming, the story of oneness with nature, is part of her gift. Because of losing her and saying yes to that, I have so much capacity to losing her and to grieving her. Like, I was like, okay, well, that's what's happened. I mean, I can't change it. So rather than, and everybody responds to grief in different ways, and I'm not saying that mine's the only way or it's right, but this is how I responded. And what that means is that I have the capacity to hold many stories and the depth of human experience and emotion because of what I went through with her, to be able to then go out onto alone and connect absolutely with every single thing around, to be able to then win, to then have this platform to be able to talk about these things on, like with you, or to be, to write the book, or to be on the cover of the Good Weekend. And to me, it isn't about me. It really isn't. I am a placeholder for a story. It just happens that I'm the one that's, blah, 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 blah. But it's actually, it's not that I'm special or any more or less, because none of us are, but it's that I'm a placeholder for a story that I think our culture has largely forgotten. A story of connection and a story of oneness, a story of listening to the web of life as it moves on this planet and how we are a part of it, and every choice we make has consequences, and now we are seeing them and we're living them. To be able to have this particular version of that story is partly because I lost Blaise. And so if I sort of track in, what was our purpose together, I can really feel whether or not it was a plan, whether, I can't answer that question, but I do know that the way I have metabolized that grief and that loss has meant that I have been able to bring that story into a waiting world for me at a time where that story is useful and that it will help people who are ready for that story. But the other thing is that women, so many women know that story in their bones, in our bones, but in a society that has been feeding us the man versus wild patriarchal view of being in wilderness, we don't get to really see that story. We don't get to see our own story. And so for me, part of what has happened with Alone and part of what's happened since then is I get to be a placeholder for all those women out there who know exactly what it's like to connect in this way, because they do it in their gardens and they do it with their kids and they do it with their food and they do it every day, but it's no bells and whistles, it's not a fanfare, it's not a language, it's just Tuesday. But to see someone actually be able to bring that into mainstream brings like a validation, and it brings a language for women and men, but lots of women to be able to say, hey, that's me. I know what that is. And I'm that too. And it's not weird and it's not strange and it's not like hippie. It's actually the deepest wisdom that we have as humans. And to bring balance into our incredibly unbalanced world, this is an incredibly rich and potent and powerful story. And so for me, it's like part of the gift of Blaise. This is her gift in the world.
Because in the book, before you retell Blaise's last moments, you do this most generous thing of sparing the reader the pain of the story and giving them an out. Mm-hmm. You know the reader's not going to... you know they're going to keep reading. You know, I was compelled to keep reading at this, but it's like, no, what? No, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of this human experience. So you know the reader is going to stay, so you go on to telling the story and you carry the reader through the pain. How do you do it?
I think because I have written so much about her, and I have, over the last 11 years, I have written so much about my journey of loss with her. I learned something really profound because I would blog about my journey on Facebook. And Facebook is the most incredible medium because one minute you've got someone's breakfast, the next minute you've got someone's holiday, next minute you've got some conspiracy theory, and oh, now there's a post from Gina about it's 6 months since my child died. And in those posts, I would always take people in, but I would consciously then find the lesson in whatever I was, sort of going through. And so I always want to leave everyone and everything and every moment better than I found it in life.
Where does the strength come from?
Born with it. I don't know any different. I really don't know any different. I don't know whether you call it a soul or... I think every human comes in with their own fingerprint, their own kind of soul print, if you like. I don't know how it works, but I think we all come in with our own biological story and our own epigenetic story and our own whatever our spirituality story is, and then how we metabolize all of that in the world and interact with our environment in a temporal sense, as we move through life, then that we get to bring those gifts into the world. I got born with this ridiculous energy. Like I just got born. I feel like I got born.
I can feel it.
I know. It's like 3 people's energy in one body. Yeah. And then so the
But you know what, like I said earlier, you know where I'm feeling it? I'm actually feeling it in my loins the whole time. Not in my area, but like in my thighs. Yeah. It is... What's that?
Yeah, look, you could call it... Look, there's a whole
This
other
is because
thing.
I'm sitting right next to you and literally on top of you.
Yeah. But it's also... There are schools of thought that study how energy moves in humans, right? In a spiritual sense or in an esoteric sense. And we could go down a whole rabbit hole of that. My experience is that there is an organic language that bodies have that is nothing to do with our cognitive function, that there is an organic intelligence that animals have. So an animal will instinctively know when something is watching it. Like, when you're going down the street and all of a sudden you turn and somebody's looking straight at you. How do we know? When your phone rings and you're like, oh, that's Aunt Mabel. Boom, it's Aunt Mabel. How do we know? Like there is this ability that we have, and for me it's not magic. For me, it is just part of the facility of the animal of our bodies, which needs to be able to connect with its environment to survive. And for millions and millions of years that we've been animals, and then 350,000 years that we've been Homo sapiens, that's how we've survived. And it's a function and a facility we have. So we call it energy. Now, in a pure physics level, it probably isn't, but calling it the energetic exchange and the energetic language means that there is a language that our bodies have of communicating that is nothing to do with our cerebral cortex and our sort of logical, literal, lateral, structured thought processes. And it's what we could call instinct. It's what we could call insight, the flash of insight. I have spent a long time speaking that language on purpose. And for me, when I'm in nature, that's what I'm listening to. That's the language I'm listening to. I'm not thinking about whether this bird is this particular bird. Yes, that's information. But actually, it's like my spidey senses are connecting with everything in all directions. And for me, that is the language of energy. And when we're in proximity with each other, the human animals are exchanging information. So we are exchanging information in that energetic sense. And you feel it as heat, you feel it as aliveness, I feel it as tingling.
I'm tingling right
Yeah.
now. So somewhere in the last episodes of Alone, you said, I'm paraphrasing now, when my daughter Blaise died, I made a decision. The way I adapted and defend myself now against the kind of pain is to not need anyone. But in the solitude of this space, I do want someone here. Now, Amanda Keller picked it up, and I was like, damn, that was in the reunion, that was the question I wanted to answer. I wanted to ask, rather. It's now been 10-something years since Blaise has died. It's almost 2 years since you made that statement, plus the cathartic experience of writing, I would imagine cathartic, writing this book. What do you have to give parents who are staring down the barrel of losing or have lost a child? Now, I'm specific to this cohort of parents, these people, not just anyone dying, but to parents who could be losing their child or have lost their child, because it's not a natural, and I think of my own children right now, it's not a natural order for a parent to bury their child. What have you got? What message have you got for these people?
Oh, look at you, love. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for your big heart. Thanks for feeling it. I mean, I think this is part of the conversation, is being willing to feel the absolute terror and horror of that as a parent, because it is the unthinkable and the unspeakable, but it also exists, you know. So I think it's really important to be able to have these conversations. So yeah, thanks for asking and for feeling and, you know, being receptive to that. I got asked a question on the Imperfects podcast, where they said, when you said, so what's it like to lose a child? And I said, I can't say what it's like to lose a child, but I can say what it's like to lose mine. And so for me, any answer that I give is from the perspective of my loss and my journey with that loss. And every single loss is different. The thing I think that I would probably, just off the top of my head, say here is that everything dies. Everything dies. Every moment dies. Our youth dies. Our stages of life die. We lose a job, or we lose a parent, or we lose a dog, or we watch a dream flame and turn to ash. And if we have healthy language about those little deaths, we are preparing ourselves for the really big ones. Like for me, losing a child, or it might be losing a parent, or something like that. And losing a child, I think, is what I've noticed is it provides such a doorway to feel all the deaths, all the griefs. Like it just kicks down the doors and windows of our heart and can really bring an opening, because it's just like, it is the unthinkable. So it can bring an opening to the deeper mysteries of death. As to what I would offer to parents who are going through it, is there is nothing you can say. So what I would offer is for people who are in support of someone who is going through it. Because we don't know what to say, we will often say, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss. We don't know what else to say. And my experience, and a lot of the parents that I've spoken to who have lost a child, what they want, what we want, is to hear our kid's name. We want to hear their name. We want them to not be gone. And so to have, if you're in support, to be able to ask the question, to be able to keep their name alive, to be able to do more than I'm sorry for your loss. If I'm sorry for your loss is all you can do, then great. That's you know, we don't know what to do. But I would say to ask the people who are going through something like this, what do you need from me right now? How would you like me to engage with you? What is the way that I can help you the most? Do you want me to not ask, or do you want me to ask? And a lot of the time people are going to say, please, ask me. Ask me about them. Ask me stories about them. Ask me about their life. Ask me about how I'm doing. And want to listen to the answer. And I think in these little ways, what we're doing is we're changing our culture about grief and providing more of a basket to hold people who are going through the big ones and just like changing the world, like, you know, one tiny little conversation at a time. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
That's perfect. Now, this third food memory, I like this memory. It's about restoration, connectivity through observation, discovery and openness. In your 30s, you spent a lot of time in far north Queensland.
I did. So after nearly dying physically and crawling back to life, I ended up on an island in far north Queensland called Haggerstone Island. Now, Haggerstone Island is 600 kilometres north of Cairns. So it's right at the pointy bit of Australia.
What is it with extremes in you?
Me, that's me. It's always been that. So Haggerstone is this tiny, tiny little Robinson Crusoe castaway resort that was owned by a husband and wife team named Roy and Anna Turner. Now, Roy was Aussie as they come. He was like the original Croc Dundee. He used to go croc hunting in New Guinea. He was a raconteur. He was a musician. He could play the guitar and sing. He cooked like these incredible, you know, incredibly extravagant dishes. And Anna, his wife, is English and very sort of contained and calm and kind of like the glue to his fire. And her cooking and the way that she sort of ran the island was all about the incredible food that you get, like French cooking, where it might not even look like much, but every taste of it takes you to a memory of a childhood you didn't have. You know, it's the childhood you wish you'd had, or the childhood that...
There's a storyline
in
the flavour.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and so Roy's dishes were these extravagant, flamboyant, ta-da! It was like you could almost hear the trumpets, you know, playing, and he would deliver this amazing thing, and it would be...
1814 Overture.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Or Ride of the Valkyries. Dun, dun, da, 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 dun, da, 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 and then boom, and there it would be. And then Anna would come up with this, you know, we cooked a lot from the Elizabeth David French provincial cooking little cookbook, which I still have. And all her recipes were just so beautiful and so delicious. And they balanced each other really well. So I spent an entire year working on this island, and I mean working. I was working pretty much 15 hours a day. In the beginning, 7 days a week, and that was cleaning, it was cooking, it was doing everything. Every now and then going out.
Did you do more than was needed?
No, everything was needed. Everything was needed. Anyone on the island, you just work. That's it. You work. If you can't work, then you shouldn't be there. So we would catch everything from the sea, or we'd grow it from the orchard. And there was a generator that would go on for a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours at night. The guests would stay in these huts that had been hand-built from driftwood and sleep in beds that had mosquito nets to keep the centipedes and the mosquitoes out. And every day the guests would go out on this boat to catch the food and to have the experiences. And so my job would be to clean all the huts and wash all the windows and sweep the paths and make the breakfast and make the lunches, for the basic lunch for the guests to take out to have with their seafood they'd catch. And then when they brought it all back, then to make the dinner, we would start prepping dinner at 3:30 in the afternoon, and it was all by hand. So the memory that I've given you is of this incredible coconut cream crayfish, chili crayfish dish, which was one of Roy's, because it was one of those Tadar ones. But I would, with an axe, I would cut the coconut, and then he'd rigged up this metal grinder so you could grind the inside of the coconut to get the sweet flesh, then squeeze it through muslin to get the coconut cream. I would go out on the boat every chance I could, and I learned that I was good at free diving, and I was really good at hunting. So I would spear these crayfish that would sometimes be as long as my arm. So there might be a crayfish that I'd managed to spear that day, but if not, somebody else had. And then, so there'd be the coconut cream, go to the kaffir lime tree and get the kaffir lime leaves, go to the garden and get the coriander, go to the chili bushes and get the chilies, get the tamarind and squish that, and create this, cook the freshly, harvested crayfish and combine it into this incredible, with a little squeeze of lime, this incredible, delicious, marinated coconut cream chili crayfish dish that would then be fed as one of the 5 courses to the guests.
So now I'm thinking you're doing all of this from Mother Earth. Do you have that same feeling when you go to the supermarket?
No. I mean, so I spent a year on Haggerston, and then I would go back regularly for 2 or 3 months at a time. And Anna, bless her, taught me how to cook. Like before Anna, I was a good bush cook. Like I could go to your pantry if I stayed at your house and go, right, we're going to have this. But I wasn't I wasn't like a cook. But from cooking, you know, basically 5-star food, 5 courses a night for years, from all of these incredible ingredients, I learned how to cook, and I learned how to cook island style. So now when I go to a supermarket, all I see is the limp veggies when I used to pull them out of an orchard. Or I go to the fish market and I see just all of the cloudy eyes of the fish, or the frozen fish. And every now and then I'm like, what's that? And it turns out that's the local one the fisherman brought in. I'm like, yeah, give me that. So I'll make do with what I find, but my happy place is to be able to take from the land, and from that to like create art with food.
So this was a period after the cancer?
So no, this was before.
Before the cancer.
This was
right.
before.
So when you say you came back from did you say you came back from the dead?
Yeah, I nearly died. I had a medical event that nearly killed me, and in the aftermath of that, that's when I ended up on the island, courtesy of a very dear friend. And I loved it so much that I just pestered them until I could go back, and they let me come back, and then I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked.
Hence the restorative feeling and that coming back to life and the connectedness back to body.
Yeah.
What is it about the natural environment you find so provocative?
Well, I think for me, humans have been Homo sapiens for 350,000 years. For 340,000 of those years, we were hunter-gatherers. So we lived in small bands that moved across the landscape, getting our needs met from the land and from our ceremonies and tools and of connection with each other, with the land, with a purpose greater than self, whatever you want to call it. And that's how we survived for 340,000 years, until we started breaking ground and growing things. For me, the wisdom of a human is that, like in my DNA, I know what it is to have to get my needs met from the land, as does every living thing, except us, except modern humans. When we go down to the supermarket, we don't have any sense of where our food comes from. We don't have a sense of actually harvesting it ourselves most of the time. And we live in walls now because we have to store our calories. So we're not moving across the landscape. We've got fridges and we've got freezers and we've got, supermarkets, we've got all the things. And that means that we have to keep them safe. We've got, we've developed this culture of walls. So we don't know what the weather's doing. We can't hear what the birds are saying. We've taken our natural capacity to feel out to the edge of a horizon, and we've said, no, you've got to stop here in these walls. We live in boxes. And now we live in boxes, which means we're disconnected from our village, we're disconnected from nature, we're disconnected from the stars. Our little nuclear connections are there, but they're kind of weird as well, because someone's got to bugger off and like earn the money to pay for the box. So we don't have those healthy tribal connections either. So we're now in a world where our wounds of connection are so far along, we don't even know what we've lost. But we yearn for that connection like a wolf that's born in captivity yearns for the forest without ever having seen it. Like we don't even know why we're so hungry for it, because it's in our DNA. Whenever I go out into nature, I remember who I am. And I am not a creature of walls. I am not a creature of supermarkets. I can enjoy all of those things, but are they nourishing? Do I feel complete? No. Whereas when I'm in nature, now I'm part of that battery. Now I can allow the battery of nature, feed me and fuel me. Now I'm not getting billboards telling me I'm the wrong size or the wrong shape. Now I'm not getting social media sucking me in so I'm doom scrolling. Now I'm listening to birds. I'm listening to the natural web of life. And I understand that in nature, there is no hierarchy. There is no hierarchy of life. No life is more important or less important than any other. That's us. We say that. We've got that value judgment. And so when I go out in nature, all of the pressures of modern life fall away. And in the mirror of wild nature, I actually see my true essence, my true nature as a wild creature that is connected to a living planet. And in that, I know that I'm at home.
Are you more land or sea, or are you the place where the land meets the sea?
I am the place where the land meets the sea.
And what happens there?
Oh, I love that so much. So I love that, you know, in the sort of archetypal, metaphorical, symbolic language of nature, it's very easy for me to sort of see what's going on in nature and have a sense of like a deeper story in my own life. So when I'm poised on the edge of the ocean is amazing because what you see on the surface is the reflection of light and the ripples of light, the ripples of life, the little flurries of movement. But if you're a diver, when you get down to the bottom, there's very little movement. There's no noise, there's no colour, the colour's all gone. It's just the blue. And for me, if I look at the surface of the ocean and I identify with the surface of the ocean, that's like the noisiness of my thoughts and my stories. And if I drop down to the bottom of the ocean, then that is like the deeper language of, shall we call it my spirit? But really, I'm the whole thing. I'm the bottom of the ocean, and I'm the ripples on the surface, and I'm the sand, and I'm the fish, and I'm the clouds, and I'm the rain, and I'm the whole lot. So when I'm standing on the beach, I'm kind of like at the nexus and the intersection of all of these different strands of existence. And I can let go my human stories enough to have a sense of myself as a complete being.
So, which takes us to your social cause. Now, in your notes to me about this particular cause, you wrote, "Don't get me started." Well, Gina Chick, your time starts now. What drives you absolutely mental about the health of our water system?
Yeah. What drives me absolutely mental is, oh my goodness, we are so stupid. Humans, we are just so stupid. We shit and we piss and we pollute the water that we need to survive. I don't understand how we can be so willfully ignorant. This idea that we are exempt from consequence baffles me. I don't understand how we can just think that we can keep pouring toxic chemicals and pollutants and garbage and plastic into the ocean and not have it be part of us because we are made of water. So eventually everything always balances. The thing that drives me nuts is that we absolutely need healthy oceans to survive. Without healthy oceans, if we don't have healthy oceans, that's it, curtains for us. Now, Big Mama Gaia is going to be fine. Like, she kicks us off, you know, in a few 100,000 million billion years, something else will arrive with more biodiversity because that's what Big Mama does. But
Big Mama is?
Oh, Gaia, the planet, the living planet, whatever you want to call this vast biosphere that we're in. But us, we are destroying our ability to survive. And the way we're doing this, like, I could have had as my cause anything. I could have had it about deforestation. I could have had it about species loss. I could have had it about a million things. But the oceans and ocean health and water health is the thing that when I see the latest news story about, say, salmon farms or fish farms, and I get it. I get that there's jobs. I get that people need an income. But when the consequence of the way that we are farming fish, and I've seen this, it is so disgusting having tens of thousands of living creatures jammed into this little space, and they've got sores all over them, they've got bits of flesh hanging off, there's dead ones that are just floating, they don't have enough oxygen, so they're all gasping, and they're creating an environment where the oxygen the oxygenation of the surrounding waterways is affected, which then kills the surrounding ecosystems as well. And to me, it's just so short-sighted, and everywhere I look, I see ways that we are killing our oceans, and which means not only are we making life impossible for our beautiful whales who rely on that, the dolphins, the turtles, the fish, the everything, it's also ultimately us. We're destroying the thing that we need to survive, and we're doing it really fast.
Any way of turning it around?
Oh man, wake the fuck up, humans. I don't know. I mean, yes, of course, we could turn it around. But what would have to happen for it to turn around would be for governments the world over to be able to resist fossil fuel interests, big pharma interests, all the places where the big money is, where the billionaires are, and to be able to enact policies that result in true, healthy, sustainable change to protect our biodiversity, to protect our ocean health, to stop spewing carbon dioxide into the environment, to stop the global warming, which is like, hello, here we are. And I just don't see anywhere really where it's anything other than tokenistic. It's like, oh, here's a tiny little place where a government's doing something. Oh, here's one little thing. But really, what I see is a system that is really broken, and the only things we're ultimately breaking, well, apart from all the species that are dying, but we're one of them. So it's like, can we really be that silly? Yeah, I think we can.
We have a MFK Fisher Serve It Forth tradition here at Three Food Memories, where our previous guest presents you with a dish. Our previous guest was journalist and fellow bird nerd enthusiast Chris Barth. She has served you chicken risotto with herbs and leeks, all from her garden, except for the chook. What would you like to serve our next guest?
Oh, what would I like to serve our next guest?
I like that you say our next guest. I like that you've made yourself part of the DNA of this show.
Are you kidding? I'm like, we've just been hanging. We've been exchanging energy. Like our loins have been loining. I guess, you know what I would love to serve to the next guest would be a recipe that I learned on Haggerston Island, which is a ceviche. And I would be making it with coral trout, but any like a deep sea perch would do. And it's this incredible sort of it's the fish is marinated in a vinegar, like a 50-50 vinegar water mixed to cook the fish, and then kaffir lime, coriander, some chili, some lime, some chopped up little green beans, and it all just gets to, and some fish sauce, and it is one of the most delicious spring dishes that I can think.
I actually just had a vision of your grandmother cooking something, a Hellenic version of that on Ithra.
Oh my God,
I just you were doing that. I lost all the the Australian.
Never ever thought of that, but you're probably right. So I learned this on Haggerston. So Haggerston was very much almost like Thai inspired or Islander, Pacific Island inspired, because it's, we had all that climate and that thing, the tropical climate and the tropical plants. But that ceviche I still make, and it blows people's minds when I do.
Ceviche for our next guest.
Yes, please.
To finish, Gina, may I read you a little passage?
Yeah, absolutely.
One night I dreamed I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. In each I noticed footprints in the sand. Sometimes there were 2 sets of footprints, other times there was only one. I asked my Lord, Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd work with me all the way. But I noticed that during the most saddest moments of my life, there are only one set of footprints. My Lord whispered, precious child, when you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. My darling Gina, you are never alone. You've never been alone. I am so full of stars that we've shared these 3 food memories together.
Thank you. Oh, what a a delight you are. Thank you so much.
Never
What?
alone, ever.
No.
You're never, and you've never been abnormal and whatever all that. You've
No.
never been any of that.
No. And
You've
I
been
think,
carried the whole way.
yeah. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of 3 Food Memories.